Hello and welcome to Turner Sims Southampton. I'm Kevin Appleby, the Concert Hall Manager, and it's a delight to welcome you to the venue on another night of music and conversation. Turner Sims in Conversation is a new series looking into the lives, the inspirations, the influences and the careers of artists and practitioners. And tonight's artist is somebody whose career has really been mapped out through her time at the Turner Sims, from her debut at the venue at the age of 17, through to performances here both as solo recitalist and as a chamber musician, but also recording 3 albums here for SOMM Recordings. It's a delight to welcome Cordelia Williams to Turner Sims tonight. Cordelia, welcome.
Thank you very much.
We're going to talk through a number of bits of your career over the next hour or so, and also hear you play some music as well, which is fantastic. Can I start right at the beginning and just talk about how you started to play the piano? Were you one of those children who were given a gift at a very young age and then thought, well, I'll try that? Or did you play another instrument and then move on to the piano? How did it work? What was the starting point for you?
Well, I definitely started with the piano. My mother was a piano teacher. She actually a harpsichordist, but she also teaches piano. And so I grew up from a very early age, really from birth, hearing piano lessons in our house. And of course was fascinated by these older children learning the piano. And so I think when I was 2 or 3, I started asking properly to learn. And she started giving me lessons when I was 3. So it was always the piano, really, for me.
And did you try any other instruments as well, or was it always the keyboard?
I did, but it was always as an aside. So I played at various times the flute, the accordion, and the viola. But they were really sort of sideline hobbies, along with the piano.
And the music you were playing, was it always classical, or were you dabbling in other things and just trying to see how it worked?
Pretty much always classical, yeah. That was, I guess because of also the background of my mother, who was very keen on Baroque music, of course, as a harpsichordist. And her experience of music was more of the classical range, so that's what I sort of inherited.
Yeah. So I mean, so it's interesting to talk about that as that starting point. I mean, if we can fast forward a little bit, because obviously a lot of people will know you from BBC Young Musician of the Year, where you were a finalist in 2006, and obviously you also won the Concours International Piano in Aix-en-Provence. Is that right? As well?
Yes, in Aix-en-Provence. Yes. Yeah, that was in 2011.
Yeah. So, I mean, as young people growing up and working out how they might actually develop their skills, competitions is one of those interesting questions about how you understand that. I mean, the BBC Young Musician competition is one of those renowned competitions that many of us will remember. Yeah. Many of the soloists and many of the winners going back to the 1970s even and things. But competitions have a certain place in terms of your career development, in terms of your approach to music, the way you work. I mean, how did they work for you in terms of entering them and considering what you did with them and afterwards?
Well, the BBC competition was a wonderful experience for me. I was 16 and 17 at the time, because it takes place over quite a few months. And that's a really special competition, I think, because it has a real place in people's hearts. I think you grow up, if you're at all interested in music as a child, then you kind of grow up watching that competition every year. And so I do think people feel quite a sense of connection with the competition, and it has been very, very helpful having that sort of behind me. It's definitely helped my career immediately afterwards, and then that has had an impact on the trajectory of my career since then. So, you know, I'm very grateful for that experience. And likewise, the competition in Provence that I did, which was more of an adult professional competition, had a really wonderful effect on being able to do lots more concerts in France, which I love. So both of those have been fantastic for me. I did start to feel a bit later that maybe competitions was not the direction I wanted to go in anymore. I suppose as I was gaining more confidence in my performing character or the direction I wanted to go in, I felt that the mindset and the setting of a competition was quite far removed from that of public performances, you know, putting on an entire evening of music that feels like a journey and that you're communicating a whole concert to a live audience felt very different. And I think the style of playing that is required for a competition is quite different from what is actually, you know, moving and thought-provoking in a live setting. So yeah, I started to veer away from competitions eventually, but they definitely play an important role.
And it's a challenge as well, isn't it, certainly for a young artist to work out how any success in a competition, or not even success, I mean recognition, I suppose, because I mean if one looks at the Leeds piano competition as another example of a major competition where actually, you know, quite a lot of the artists who are in those final places aren't necessarily the ones who were voted first in that particular competition. But the challenge then comes how you respond to that profile, that expectation of promoters, audiences, festivals, that you will suddenly have a whole vast repertoire to present, which sometimes is too early in a particular career stage.
I think that's true. Yeah, that kind of reflects a little bit what I was saying about the difference in mindset between competitions and concerts. I think to do well in a competition, you have to have one program that is perfect and that you can play without making any mistakes, which is extremely impressive and showcases all of the different aspects of your playing. And what you want is for everyone, all the jury members, to think that you're good, rather than splitting opinion. If you split opinion, then that's not how it works. You know, you can't do well in a competition if you split the opinion of the jury. So I think to do well in a competition, you have this certain kind of skill set. And then if you win, you suddenly have all of these concert opportunities, perhaps. And you can't just play the same program over and over again. You have to have more of an organic kind of build-up of repertoire and of a character as a performing artist. So yeah, they don't always sit totally well together.
Yeah. Let's move on and let's have some music. I mean, that's what we're here for in lots of ways. We're starting with Mozart tonight,
yes.
And I know that it's a piece that has a special meaning for you. So
oh, yeah.
can you just tell us about, it's the Fantasia in D minor. Tell us about the history of that, and tell us what we can expect to hear you playing it.
Okay, well, so this piece, I was reminded earlier that it's actually kind of the piece which set off my whole journey as a musician, in that I played it first when I was probably 9, I would guess, 9 or 10. And it was the first thing that I played to my future teacher at Cheetham School of Music. And so it was that piece which kind of set off our relationship and led to me going to that music school. And of course, that led on to everything else since then. So it feels like quite an important piece for me. It's also a very interesting work. It was unfinished when Mozart died. And the last bars traditionally have been sort of filled in by one of Mozart's admirers. And to me, it's rather a flippant ending to what's quite a deep piece of music. I think the Fantasia starts in a very mysterious, dark way, and then there emerges this beautiful melody of hope. And so to have this quite flippant, sort of happy ending doesn't really suit it, I don't think. So instead of playing that tacked-on ending, I've actually decided to remove it and place my own ending, which recalls the beginning, the introduction of the Fantasia. So I think it's a nice shape in that it emerges out of the darkness and then kind of disappears back into the darkness again.
Fantastic. Well, let's hear you play that now. This is Mozart's Fantasia in D minor, Köchel 397, played by Cordelia Williams here at Turner Sims, Southampton. That was Cordelia Williams playing Mozart's Fantasia in D minor, Köchel 397 here at Turner Sims in Southampton. Cordelia, can I come back to you on talk about rehearsal, practice, preparing to perform that magical piece you've done there? How do you go about preparing a work? I mean, do you listen to recordings of it before you start? Do you go through it piece by piece, or what's your approach?
I do listen to recordings, but I generally try not to do that until I'm fairly confident in my own interpretation of a piece. Just because I think I don't want to be too much influenced by how someone else plays it. I think, you know, you run the risk of just replicating. I tend to try and get quite far along in my work and thinking before I start listening to other people. I have to be quite organised these days because I have two little boys who I think might be watching. So I have less practice time than I used to, and I can't just, you know, sit down and have the whole day in front of me to think about Mozart or whatever I'm practicing. And so I do plan out quite meticulously when I need a certain piece by, when I need to have it memorized by, when I need to be able to play the notes by, and so on, so that I know exactly, you know, where I am with each piece.
Can I pick up on that? I mean, you mentioned about memorizing. I mean, it's an interesting one for all of us. That I suspect that one sits in recitals, and when one sees an artist playing from music, sometimes you think, oh, well, why are they playing from music? I mean, how do you go about the memorizing? And is it something that you do with everything, or are there certain times when you think, no, this justifies having music in front of me?
Generally, I play from memory because, well, really just because for me, I find it easier logistically. I don't really want to be distracted by having a page turner or having to turn the pages myself somehow. So I just find it easier to get really into the zone, you know, into the mind of the piece if I'm just focusing on that. So that's my preference. I generally think if I am ready to perform something, then I generally do know it from memory anyway. However, there are exceptions. Sometimes, when I played the Messiaen Farragut de l'Enfant Jésus, I did use the music for some of those, because that is 2¼ hours of music non-stop. So that's a lot to memorize, and some of them are extremely complex. So I used the music, I think, for 5 out of the 20 movements. And then I think with Bach also, sometimes I would use the music. Partly because it seems kind of right with Bach. I think, you know, playing from memory wouldn't really have even been a thing in Bach's day. They just wouldn't have thought of, I think maybe they would have thought of it as a bit arrogant. I don't know, to pretend that you were just making it up when actually it was composed by Bach or whoever. So to me, that kind of makes sense to use the music in that situation.
Yeah, well, it's always an interesting one, isn't it, as I say, just how we get used to a particular way of doing things, or a way of seeing things, observing things as audiences and things. And do you prefer to rehearse in the morning, in the afternoon?
Oh, well, whenever I can get time nowadays. I used to like doing early morning practice before breakfast. Now I just squeeze in where I can. I have to be very, very time efficient these days.
Regulated and that sort of thing. And in terms of time slots and things, you know, there's we've heard before about the Pomodoro technique, which is the 20 minutes practice or 20 minutes of activity, and then you go away from it, and then you come back for another 20 minutes, because that is the perfect way of mindset working in.
Oh, well, I haven't heard about that, but it's funny that you mentioned that, because I am actually working on a series for YouTube about how to practice in 20 minutes. So that does fit in quite well with that. The idea being that, you know, I'm very busy, I need to be efficient with my practice, I need to actually make a difference in a short period of time. And I think probably there are other people as well who are trying to fit practice into a short amount of time. So, that's the idea.
So we look out for that one. So bite-sized music, bite-sized chunks of rehearsal, or bite-sized chunks of anything these days are important, aren't they? Don't forget, you can join in on the conversation this evening by adding questions into the chat on YouTube. So if you've got any questions for Cordelia that we're not asking or that we're not talking about, then please do feed in, and we'll see what we can pass on to Cordelia to ask about. Can I talk about recordings and artists that inspire you? I mean, we're coming up to the next piece of music, which is a composer that inspires you. But talk about artists and recordings that you know or that you love.
I think if I had to choose an artist or some artists, I would say Dinu Lipati, who I find his sound is magical. It's just so golden and just perfect. So I would definitely choose his recordings. And then I do like Annie Fisher. I think she's somehow very free and fiery in her playing. You know, there's no inhibitions there. She just plays how she needs to play, and it's very powerful to listen to. Yeah. In terms of living pianists, I very much admire Richard Good. I've actually had the very great honour of working with him, playing to him. And I admire him because he manages to play the music in a way that it feels just how the music has to be. So he's not imposing any of his own ego or his own sort of decisions on it. It just feels that is the composer speaking through him, and that's something that I very much aspire to.
Fantastic. Well, let's move on to a composer that inspires you. A composer. I was looking for. Saw a quote the other day that he said, "Ever since I was very young, I've been absolutely in love with his music," and we have this music now. This is Schubert, Franz Schubert, You recorded this music, or some of this music, on your debut disc for SOMM Recordings, didn't you? Do you want to just tell us about what it is that we're going to hear?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to play some of his Ländler, or German dances, and I recorded these on my CD of Schubert's impromptus as a sort of little complimentary addition. And yes, Schubert, I find his music really speaks to me somehow. I think I love how he hovers between the classical period and the romantic period. It's like the sentiments of the romantic period within the structure and the form of the classical period. That really appeals to me.
And have you played the chamber music? I mean, the Trout Quintet?
Yes, the Trout, the trios, the violin fantasy as well is beautiful.
Yeah. And any song recitals? I mean, because that's obviously
yes,
the other.
I've played the Die schöne Müllerin. I love his music very much. So yeah, it's these are beautiful little dances.
Fantastic. Now you're playing the Schubert to start with, but then you're running straight into a piece which is more than a century later. I mean, 20th century as opposed to 19th century, but has a link back to Schubert, doesn't it? I mean, tell us about that.
Yeah, okay, so it's Ravel's Valse Noble et Sentimentale, his noble and sentimental waltzes. And the reason I've placed these two works together is that Schubert, along with his Ländler, which are little dances, he also wrote lots and lots of waltzes. And he wrote a set called Noble Waltzes, and he wrote a set called Sentimental Waltzes. And so Ravel's title of this work is a reference back to Schubert's dances. So I thought it was nice to hear them together.
Fantastic. So we're going to hear Schubert's German dances with the posthumous opus number D366, followed by Ravel's Valse Noble et Valse Sentimentale, played by Cordelia Williams, here at Turner Sims in Southampton. That was Ravel's Valse Noble et Sentimentale, performed by Cordelia Williams here at Turner Sims, Southampton. And before that, Cordelia played Schubert's German Dances, D366. And there's more Schubert coming up at Turner Sims this coming weekend, Sunday the 4th of October. Do join us at 6 o'clock when the Jupiter Ensemble, featuring David Owen Norris on piano, will be performing Schubert's Trout Quintet. Check turnersims.co.uk for tickets and further details there. But now let's move on and have a chat about programs and chat about projects, because I'm aware of the fact over the years that we've talked, Cordelia, that you put a lot of time into thinking about how the programs that you produce come together, how they shape themselves. The Messiaen you talked about, the 2015, that extraordinary project that you did, which involved not only the music, the Messiaen music, but poetry and visuals as well. Your most recent SOMM disc, the Arvo Pärt and J.S. Bach repertoire, which was brought together in a concert here when you launched the disc, but the cover image was linked into that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, talk us about the process, about how you how these things come together, because not everybody will come up with those concepts. So what is it that drives your thought process?
I suppose my priority when I'm programming concerts is to put together something that feels like a new experience for the audience. So maybe a specific journey through the music, or putting things together in a different way, or shedding some new light on the music that we're listening to. I feel like there should always be a reason for programming things together. You know, I don't want to just have this piece, that piece, that piece, kind of randomly. I want it to make sense as a journey on that evening. And, you know, when I go to a concert, I want to feel like I come away having been changed somehow, or having had some new revelation. So yeah, that's my priority. I do spend a lot of time thinking about how to put things together in an interesting way. The CD that you mentioned, that was all about the conversation between those two composers. So although they're separated by centuries, Bach and Pärt really are writing in a very similar way in some ways. Similar sort of philosophy behind their music, and also similar techniques, although it turns out sounding very different. But so I played those pieces kind of interweaving between the Bach and Pärt, which for me worked really beautifully. So yes, I do enjoy that side of it. You're right.
And it brings it more into focus, doesn't it? I mean, that ability to hear things side by side. I was saying earlier on that that I listened to the orchestral version of Ravel's valse that you just played, and it's amazing how to hear it in the solo piano version, you suddenly have a different response. It's almost cleaner and clearer and things, and that ability to hear things either next door to other repertoire that brings it out more so that you can understand it better, or that makes you appreciate a work that perhaps you know for a very long time, but you're coming at it with fresh ears and fresh eyes and things, doesn't it? And things. Let's move on to the last piece you're going to play for us tonight, and it's another composer who you've recorded on disc. This is Schumann, Robert Schumann. And do you want to just introduce the piece that you're playing tonight and just tell us about?
Yes, okay, so yes, I've recorded a Schumann CD for SOMM in 2013, I think, 2015. Yeah. And I guess this kind of follows on from that in a way. It's the Gesänge der Frühe, or Songs of Dawn. And this is the penultimate thing that he wrote for piano. The last thing was the Ghost Variations, which I did record. And that's a very strange piece. It really feels like it's someone writing it on the verge of moving into the next world, which was true. This piece, the Songs of Dawn, feel very different to my mind, much more hopeful and uplifting. And I think you had a nice quote. What was your quote about what he wrote about them?
Well, he wrote about them, or there was he described them as 5 characteristic pieces for the pianoforte. These are pieces of music that depict one's sensations at the approach of day and the growing of the light, but more as an expression of feeling than as painting.
Yeah, Yeah, so I think that sense of hope and awakening is very clear in this music. Clara Schumann, his wife, said that they had a very strange mood, difficult to grasp because they have such a strange mood. But she also said that they're profoundly poetic, and I think they're incredibly beautiful. I absolutely love playing them. It's so really very uplifting music to play.
That's fantastic. And a time of where we are at the moment of great challenges and things.
Yeah.
Let's cling on to the hope.
Yeah, this feels like there's kind of hope shimmering on the horizon, I think, in this music.
Excellent stuff. So this is Cordelia Williams performing Schumann's Gesang der Frühe here at SOMM Southampton. Schumann's Gesänge der Frühe, performed by Cordelia Williams, tonight's guest on In Conversation here at Turner Sims Southampton. Cordelia, we're coming to the end of tonight. Thank you so much for being with us. Can I just look forwards? Let's be optimistic about where things are going in this strange world that we currently inhabit. What have you got coming up? What things have we got to look forward to from you coming in the future?
Actually, I'm about to record a new CD. As you know here, Kevin knows this already. I'm about to record a CD called Nightlight, which is going to include, in fact, that Schumann. And in fact, the whole CD really emerged from that piece by Schumann. It's a very interesting CD in that it's a collection of different music by different composers. And the idea is a journey from a place of darkness or uncertainty towards a place of hope or light or morning, a metaphorical journey. And I'm really excited about this one, so I'm very much looking forward to recording that. It should be out next summer. And what else? I'm actually writing a book at the moment about music and little children, but I don't think I can sort of go into detail about it, but do check back if that sounds interesting to you for further updates. And what else? I've got a few more of these streaming concerts over the autumn, which I'm actually excited about. I think it's quite an interesting new format that we're exploring. So
it's an interesting situation, isn't it? That I think for many places, I mean, like Turner Sims actually, where we wouldn't necessarily be going into the streaming world if it wasn't for the situation. But it's exciting, and it's a lovely thing to be able to do and make happen, and to reach out to audiences out beyond the concert hall itself. And in different countries. Absolutely. People could be watching anywhere. Well, we'll live in hope with that. So. So much hope, much optimism. Well, we look forward to hearing about the book whenever and also hearing the new album release as well. That's the end of tonight's In Conversation. Cordelia, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to welcome you here. You can find out more about Cordelia's discs and her activities on cordeliawilliams.net. That's the website address. And you can find more about what's coming up at Turner Sims at turnersims.co.uk, of course. But in the meantime, thank you very much indeed for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you.